The more we keep seeing the progression of the back and forth that goes on between medical marijuana and in particular the feds, but in fact really prohibitionists on all levels, state, county, city, it's always the same issue there, that people are doing whatever they can to counteract the medical marijuana movement, and then they further use that as a guise for the need for greater prohibition in general. And I'm thinking about what's going on there. And once again, it comes down to this blip flip story, the backwards looking people who are cannabinoid deficient versus the forward looking people who are cannabinoid endowed. And what we're really seeing, and it's just an unavoidable conclusion to me, is the most fundamental level of human discrimination, just as it occurred with different religions and different races and creeds. We're seeing that right here because biochemically, it's an intrinsic truth that half of the people are going to be above average and half of the people are going to be below average in terms of how endocannabinoid activity affects their personality and their very fundamental mode of being. So what we're really looking at are people who are more high versus people who are less high. And of course the left side are the backward-looking flips. And what's really going on with them is that they cannot deal effectively with change, because all change ultimately turns out to be a biochemical stressor. And it's how well we respond to that stress in terms of readjusting our biochemistry so that the energy, the creative energy that permeates our universe when energy can flow, so that can flow through us with a minimal amount of distortion, biochemical distortion, that results from the consequences of stress. So the people who are cannabinoid deficient, they intrinsically are more primitive in their attitudes. They're more fearful, they're more aggressive. They just don't have kind of a more mellow, enlightened attitude because they're naturally more pessimistic, and as opposed to the cannabinoid endowed people who are intrinsically more optimistic. They embrace the unknowns of the future. Look, we're all going to kick the bucket and die anyway, right? But it's how we get from here to there, and the nature not only of our personal joy and family relationships, etc., but the kind of world that we're contributing to. And one, that of progression and increased complexity, is really fully in line with the underlying thermodynamics that represents the creative nature of mankind that occurs and of the universe that occurs as energy flows. So we're part of this big picture, and the forward-looking people embrace it, whereas the backward-looking people resist it. But the fact that we have this intrinsic biochemical differentiation in terms of behavior patterns that's going to be a consequence of endocannabinoid levels, that simply is what makes it equivalent to all other forms of racism and discrimination. There are people who are biochemically different. Those people either like or don't like pot. But the problem is the people who don't like it and who are fearful are the ones controlling the other portion of the population that tends more to like it and tends to enjoy it. And of course, because of the incredible health benefits of the plant, those are the people that are more in line with reality. What they're doing is by consuming more of the plant, they're resetting their thermostats, their stress levels, and the consequences that go with it. We live in a modern world where we need more cannabinoid activity because we're living longer, and cannabinoids are a documented, anti-aging drug. They inhibit all age-related illnesses. It's all associated with the negativeness of how we respond to stress. It's unavoidable that we will all have stress. It's a matter of whether you're above average in terms of more creative adaptability or below average in terms of more fearful stagnation, essentially. So it's very unfortunate that the wrong side intrinsically has power by the very nature of their basically defect. And here we are, the victims. You know, for anybody to have the nerve to say that there's no value to medical marijuana, I mean, it's just brain dead. It's just absolutely brain dead. Just in cancer alone, I've got about 700 articles showing how cannabinoids kill cancer. Why is that ignored? Why is the default the fear side of things? Oh, it's such a bad drug. Oh, it's going to do this, that, or the other thing. Oh, implication with kids. Let's look at kids for a second. You know, I was out with my sons, and they were bike riding, and there were a bunch of kids doing trick bikes. Well, those are the risk takers. I had a T-shirt on. They were all saying, "Oh, wow, yeah, yeah." These are young kids. They're obviously getting cannabis, but they're also the kids who are out there doing these incredible tricks on these bikes. Now, risk taking is intrinsic for you to be able to get to that level of achievement. And yet risk-taking is viewed as one of the negatives associated with teenage cannabis use. Well, maybe it's the people who are biochemically more prone to risk-taking that take cannabis. I mean, doesn't that make sense? But how is that measured? How is that properly controlled for? In these studies where all they do is come to the conclusion, oh, increased risk-taking, you know, and therefore they'll try this, that, or the other thing as well. You know, the gateway theory, which is, of course, debunked by anybody who's done any reading of reality. In any event, we have to make sure, for our own survival and for the righteousness of what's going on here, that we speak out. And one of the things I recommend is every time you get a letter from one of these politicians asking you for money or support, send it back to them and say, I will not support any politician who does not support medical marijuana and the most fundamental human right to our life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, which is enhanced by that God-given plant. Thank you.